What's going on, everybody? Let's talk about this Valhalla DLC. I was excited, man, I really was. I thought, okay, maybe we're getting a sick epilogue for Kratos, maybe some crazy boss fights, something that really pushes the combat to the next level. But no, what do we get instead? Repetitive fights, a boring roguelike structure, and a story that just felt pointless. I gotta be real with you, I did not like this DLC. And we're gonna start off with the story here. So, the story is that Kratos is in Valhalla, working through his past, facing his regrets, all that good stuff. On paper, it sounds great, but in execution, I just did not care. The whole thing felt like an excuse to recycle fights instead of giving us a proper send off for Kratos. And it doesn't even feel like it connects to anything. Like the main game already wrapped up Kratos' arc in a way that made sense. He was moving on, forging a new path, but now suddenly he's in this foggy maze, fighting ghosts and reliving his past. For what? Some half baked character introspection? It just didn't hit for me. The worst part, there's no real stakes, there's no villain, no build up, and no real reason to care. You're just kind of there, going through the motions. When I heard Valhalla, I thought we were in for some epic storytelling. I thought we would be diving deep into Kratos' past, exploring the consequences of his actions, maybe even facing gods or legends in ways that push the story forward. But instead, we get a repetitive, grindy roguelike that overstays its welcome after like an hour. This is where the DLC really lost me. They went with this roguelike structure where you fight waves of enemies, pick up some upgrades, and do it all over again. And I gotta ask why? Why would they do this? So the whole thing is built around this roguelike system. Every time you enter Valhalla, you're dropped in a procedurally generated arena where you fight waves of enemies, pick some upgrades, and move on to the next room. It sounds fine in theory, right? But here's the problem. It gets incredibly boring after the first few runs. The arenas are repetitive, the enemies are repetitive, even the upgrades don't feel impactful. You're basically just going through the motions, grinding for the sake of grinding, and yeah, the combat is still solid, it's God of War after all, but it's not enough to carry the entire DLC. Listen, I love God of War's combat, I really do, but this DLC took the worst parts of it and made them the whole experience. You're just running around through the same environments, fighting the same enemies, and it gets old real quick. What makes it worse are the fog mazes. First off, you're timed. Dude, who thought this was fun? You're wandering through the mist, trying to find the right path before the timer runs out, and it's just frustrating. It's not tense, it's not exciting, it's just annoying. And I get what they were going for. They wanted to challenge you, make you think on your feet, but instead of feeling like a test of skill, it feels like a test of patience. And I failed because I was running out of it real quick. Look, the combat is still solid, it's still God of War, the weapons feel great, the animations are sick, and when you're in a good rhythm, it's so satisfying. But here's the thing, when you strip away the big set piece moments, the emotional weight behind the fights, and you just turn it into a repetitive gauntlet, it loses its magic. I don't care how good the combat is if I'm doing the same thing over and over again. It's going to get stale. That's the problem with this DLC. It takes the best part of Ragnarok and it stretches it way too thin. Instead of epic boss fights and carefully crafted encounters, you're just hacking through the waves of enemies in an endless loop. It's like they took the Muspelheim challenges and said, yeah, let's make a whole DLC out of this. Really bad call. At the end of the day, this DLC just wasn't it. The story felt pointless, the gameplay was repetitive, and the fog maze was just pure pain. I kept waiting for some big moment to make it all worth it, and it never came. Listen, if you love God of War's combat, and you just want to fight stuff for a few hours, maybe you'll have fun with this. But for me, this isn't what I wanted. I wanted a proper epilogue, a real reason to come back, and I didn't get that. If you're a hardcore God of War fan, you'll probably play it anyway, and that's fine. There's some fun to be had if you're in the roguelikes and you don't mind grinding, but if you're like me and you were hoping for something deeper, something that adds to the legacy of this franchise, you're gonna be disappointed. And look, I know that it's free, and I appreciate that, but just because something's free doesn't mean it gets a pass. I would rather pay for something that's worth my time than get something free that feels half-baked. Santa Monica Studio, I love you guys, but this is not it. You're capable of so much more, and I hope whatever you do next lives up to the high bar you set for yourselves. For now, though, I can't recommend Valhalla. Play it if you're curious, but don't go in expecting anything groundbreaking. It's a forgettable add-on to an otherwise incredible game. I would give it a 5 out of 10. It's playable, but it's forgettable at the same time. And for a series as legendary as this, that's just not good enough. Anyways, those are my thoughts. I hope you guys enjoyed the video. Thanks for watching, and I'll catch you later.